This video is brought to you by Vibrant Ingredients, a trusted partner delivering natural ingredients for food and beverage innovation. Hello, I'm Doug Peckinpah, Director of Content Strategy at BNP Media and leader of the Prepared Foods editorial team. And today I'm joined by Nagendra Rangavajla. He currently works with JPG Resources, the product development team, and has an R&D background that includes work at Nestle, Abbott, and Califia Farms, along with his position as an adjunct professor at Ohio State University. Welcome to the show, Nagendra.
Good morning to you as well, Doug.
Today, we're going to be talking about functional and healthy beverages. This is a growing category, one that's increasingly crowded and competitive. Beverage brands need to develop formulations that align with prevailing consumer need states and health goals, and this is getting more sophisticated as people learn more about what is available to them to help with their daily nutritional needs. And today, we're going to talk about understanding this trend a little bit. Nagarenda, can you talk a little bit about what you see as some of the most prominent trends today in nutritional beverages?
Absolutely. This is a great time to be in nutritional beverage space, as we've been observing around in the landscape in the space. There are three key market drivers I see today, particularly as it relates to nutritional beverages. One, in my opinion, it's going to be about the Ozempic effect and the satiety signaling. So we're seeing a rapid adoption of GLP-1 weight loss medications, which is fundamentally restructuring beverage design and development process. As we're seeing consumers moving away from massive calorific meal or too much of nutrition density from a carb fat standpoint to shifting more towards nutrient dense. So it's not just limited to protein, it's nutrient dense overall. That included a lower calorie portion control shakes that are designed to prevent muscle wasting, for example, which has been attributed as a key side effect of some of those Ozempic treatment regimens, and also to combat some of the side effects of nausea and provide sustained fullness. So we're seeing quite a bit of drive around GLP-1. There are a lot of webinars being presented. The second thing that I see is quite prominently around active longevity and biological age defiance. What I mean by that is rather than focusing purely on anti-aging mainstream, and the mainstream consumers they're looking for proactive wellness, right? You rather be proactive than having to start taking pills for the adult onset diseases. So this has manifested in some of the functional beverages that are being formulated to combat cellular decline. A lot of large CPG companies are speaking about cellular decline, mitochondrial health. So some of those trends have been quite strong in the recent years, particularly to stabilize blood sugar spikes and improve joint resilience, joint health. So lots of these elixirs, if you call them, or supplements, they're coming into the forefront to kind of treat proactive wellness, right? So it's a multifunctional beverage to some extent.
I
The
love
third thing,
I love that term that you used, age defiance. As people try and slow down the process. I think that's a great way to look at it.
yeah. And the third thing that we all have seen for quite a few years now and continues to strengthen is the trend around brain body's synchronization, right? Cognitive health. So the consumers seem to be trying to avoid the caffeine crash cycle. Energy drinks have become they've actually moved away a little bit from caffeine to becoming more of a cognitive enhancers, right? So it's a bit different from caffeine. Is It provides you definitely the acute alertness, acute energy to get going in your day. But a cognitive enhancer does a little bit more than that, right? It allows you to be more effective in what you do in a given day. And on top of those cognitive enhancers, we call them, there are clean energy sources, right? Not necessarily the caffeine, but there are alternative caffeine ingredients that are being pursued for clean energy. In addition to that, industry is talking about neuroprotectants, the ingredients that help with mental clarity or focus. Stress management is part of that. So you're seeing a brain body synchronization in some of the product design that are not only designed to deliver the energy, but overall holistic brain health, if you will.
That's a fantastic look at some of the prevailing trends here, and really it sets the stage for kind of understanding the complexity of some of these conditions. You know, there's a lot going on within the nutritional space, and often we have to simplify messages. We have to try and understand the prevailing trends and how we can deliver to them. You mentioned protein and some of the connections to GLP-1, and another, I think, ingredient that gets so directly involved within so many of these beverages, GLP-1 and otherwise, and overall gut health and immunity is fiber. And lately, we've been seeing some interest in fiber. This is a little uncommon. We don't get a lot of annual interest in fiber from a broad demographic. There's certain consumer demographics that are more focused on fiber. But when fiber starts to trend, we pay attention. And lately, we've been hearing about fiber maxing, over the last year or so. This is an interesting trend. Do you feel that fiber and gut health will maintain lasting appeal, above and beyond the fiber maxing trend that we're seeing with mainstream consumers?
Absolutely. I'm passionate about gut health as such, so I may be a little biased, but beyond that, I do certainly think that it's not a passing fad. It has, I believe, secured a permanent mainstream status. Consumers now understand that gut microbiome is important, and it's a center of your homeostasis or center of your entire body's performance. It influences your systemic inflammation to skin health, to immune defenses and mental well-being. There are lots of axes being formed today, from gut to muscle, gut to brain, gut to digestion. So the science has evolved quite substantially over the years to support some of the fundamental afflictions of gut health on rest of the body, right? So I certainly think from a scientific standpoint and the consumer understanding, this is one of the really good trends that I believe will go stronger as we move forward. And also when you think of fiber gap, right? Fiber gap is a multi-generational issues. Over 90% of Western population, particularly Americans, even when you look at geographies, Asians have less deficit in fiber versus Western Europeans or the United States, for example, right? So I think the key is going to be, which is it's we're already seeing in the trend, the key is going to be creating a market for accessible, pleasant, tolerant fiber delivery formats, right? That's happening today, and that's going to continue to cement this trend and make it even more permanent in consumers' demand. So I do certainly think that it's not a passing fad, but it's going to be something here to stay. So similar to proteins. I mean, protein was considered fat some time ago, but it continues to grow, right? And secondly, when you talk about fiber maxing, Doug, we already talked about that 90% of Americans do not get enough fiber, right? But then there's also the fiber maxing that is often defined by, targeting not just 30 grams of fiber that our food guide pyramids talk about, but beyond that, can you go up to 50 grams of fiber? We know that hunter-gatherers have consumed up to 100 to 200 grams of fiber. That's been substantiated quite nicely in scientific fields, right? So you're seeing lots of those, and consumers seeing the benefit around it. So I do think it's a right trend to stay on.
We often expect our beverages to do so much within the nutritional space, and there have been we've seen some great success with kind of singular focused beverages. We have a beverage for hydration, we have a beverage for protein boosting, and so forth. But lately, we're starting to see the as the understanding of the needs, the nutritional needs to meet our different nutritional needs from day to day, our beverages are getting more complicated as well. So we're starting to see more multifunctional beverages that address multiple nutritional needs. A great example, of course, is controlled portion fiber plus protein for GLP-1 user support. When you think about fiber and its ability to kind of maintain its appeal as we move forward, and that understanding to gut health, and I think there's so much there that we need to dig into still. Are there other nutritional concerns that you think pair well logically with fiber, kind of above and beyond what we're seeing in the GLP-1 area?
Yeah, so obviously, I mean, when you think of fiber, the age-old advice has been eat your fiber is good for you from a glycemic health standpoint, immunity, to everything else, right? So the pairings have been quite a bit in the space of blood sugar and glycemic control. We know fiber does it, but the recent studies have continued to substantiate that fiber and blood sugar management have a role to play quite closely with each other, right? So you're seeing lots of pairing with soluble fiber with glucose management on an as-is basis. The fiber itself delivers glucose management, or perhaps combined with botanicals or trace minerals. So some of those benefits are being seen. And there have been clinical studies shown to demonstrate that fiber, these ingredients or these products, have suddenly modulated post-meal insulin spikes and thereby reducing glucose excursions. So we are seeing that quite a bit. So I think that particular trend is here and has taken a nice solid space in the industry from a design standpoint. And the gut-brain axis mood optimization, it's a little bit more newer. Fiber has always been, below your navel, that's where fiber belonged to. More recently, the gut-brain axis became a lot more um, popular, not just from as a fad, not just from a consumer sentiment standpoint, not necessarily a fad. Consumers, I didn't mean to say that, but there's been quite a bit of scientific evidence that point to some of the bioactives that are produced as part of consuming fiber that are linked to the brain and mood, right? Brain health and mood. Some of them are have mood modulating properties. Some of the short chain fatty acids, they are shown to stimulate the release of gut derived serotonin. Gut is a major influence on serotonin management which is a foundation for sleep, calmness, and focus oriented changes, right? So you're seeing a lot of those beverages targeting the metabolites of fiber that lead to then technically serotonin management, which will then lead to the mood or sleep or calm or some of these advantages. So I see that quite a bit in the as a number two, besides stronger blood sugar and glycemic control.
Hmm.
Thirdly, bioavailability and hydration. We've known fibers have been implicated in improved bioavailability, whether it is calciums. There have been a lot of studies that show, but more and more products are being designed to also deliver hydration, cellular hydration in particular. So we're seeing some of those trends come forth, at least in some of the research I've personally done in the last, even in the last 3 to 4 years. I've seen a lot more movement in those spaces as well.
It's fascinating to hear about these different opportunities that we have to address so many different health needs through gut health. I mean, I think when we look back on this time, we're going to see just it as a wonderfully diverse time as people start to understand more about how they can control their health through just a few basic dietary needs that really aren't being met. I mean, you talk about the fiber gap and how significant that is. So hopefully we can maintain this momentum and really open up some new opportunities in product development in functional beverages here. Thank you so much for joining us today, Nagendra, and for sharing these great insights. This is a two-part series, so watch for part two, where we will continue our discussion, taking a deeper dive into some of the ingredients that beverage formulators are working with to deliver on next-level functional healthy beverages for consumers who are eager for more. Thank you so much for being with us today. This video is brought to you by Vibrant Ingredients, a trusted partner delivering natural ingredients for food and beverage innovation.